you are not as free as you think. That single idea is uncomfortable because it quietly contradicts everything we're taught about choice, progress, and control. Most people assume that if life feels empty or fragmented, it's just stress, bad luck, or personal failure. But what if that explanation is incomplete? What if the real limitation isn't imposed by society, fate, or other people, but by subtle patterns of thought you've never been taught to question? Ancient Gnostic thinkers hinted at a deeper layer of reality, one where illusion doesn't scream for attention, but whispers through habits, fears, desires, and identities we mistake for ourselves. This isn't about rejecting the world or attacking belief systems. It's about noticing what quietly shapes your inner life while you're busy living it. In this video, you'll step into a different way of seeing, a journey inward that may reveal how much of your life has been lived on autopilot, and how recognizing that fact could be the first real opening toward clarity, freedom, and a profound shift in how you understand yourself and the world around you. That first glimpse of clarity doesn't arrive like a thunderbolt, but arrives like a quiet interruption, a pause where something inside you stops agreeing with the story you've been living. The big idea hidden beneath this moment is simple and unsettling. What you call reality may be a carefully maintained inner habit, not a fixed truth. Ancient voices once whispered that awakening isn't about gaining something new, but about remembering what was gently pushed aside, layer by layer, until it felt unfamiliar. In those stories, the forces that shape human life were never monsters in the sky, but patterns that learned how to live inside the mind, borrowing your voice, wearing your worries, feeding on your attention without ever announcing themselves. You felt them before in the pressure to become someone acceptable, in the fear that you're falling behind, in the strange exhaustion that comes from chasing a life that never quite feels like yours. This is where the illusion tightens, not through force, but through agreement, through repetition, through the belief that these thoughts are who you are. The old Gnostic imagination spoke of a spark buried beneath this noise, not lost, just ignored, like a forgotten star covered by clouds of urgency and doubt. When you begin to notice the voice that rushes you, compares you, and quietly judges you, something shifts. Not dramatically, but decisively. You start to sense space between the thought and the one who hears it. That space is the crack where the myth opens into your own life. Consider how much of your day runs on reflex, scrolling, striving, reacting, planning a future that never quite arrives. None of this makes you weak. It makes you human inside a system that thrives on distraction. The archons of the old stories didn't need chains, and they needed momentum, and momentum is built from unexamined habits. Yet the moment awareness enters, the spell doesn't explode, it quietly loosens. You begin to see that fulfillment promised by approval, status, or endless improvement always moves one step ahead of you, like a mirage designed to keep you walking. This realization isn't meant to pull you away from life, but deeper into it, with eyes open. The transformation hinted at here doesn't require escape or rebellion, only attention, the kind that watches without immediately obeying. If this feels personal, it's because it is. These myths were never meant to stay in books. They were meant to be lived inwardly. Right now, you're standing at a quiet threshold. To turn away is easy and familiar. To stay present, even briefly, is to remember that the prison was never locked, and the key has been resting in your own awareness all along. If the door was never locked, then the real mystery is why it felt closed for so long. The big idea hidden here is unsettling and gentle at the same time. Not every thought that moves through you belongs to you. There are days when your inner world feels pulled apart, hope rising in the morning and dissolving by nightfall, emotions shifting without a clear cause. It's easy to accept this as normal, but ancient mythic voices hinted at something quieter and stranger, that human awareness is a shared space, and not every whisper inside it is born from your own center. They spoke of unseen influences that don't command, but suggest, nudging attention toward fear, guilt, and endless comparison until confusion feels natural. In the modern world, these forces no longer wear symbolic masks. They move through glowing screens, curated images, urgent messages, and the subtle pressure to measure your worth against an illusion. Picture yourself late at night, scrolling without intention, feeling a tightness grow as other lives appear brighter, fuller, more certain. The voice that says you're behind feels intimate, almost familiar, yet it leaves you smaller than before. In those old stories, this was how the spell worked, not through cruelty, but through repetition, until the whisper sounded like your own inner truth. But the moment you notice the effect it has on you, something loosens. What you watch strengthens. What you simply observe begins to dissolve. These influences thrive on reaction, on emotional heat, on your belief that every thought deserves obedience. You start to sense a quieter presence beneath the noise, untouched by praise or failure, calm even when the mind is loud. This isn't an escape from life, but a return to something essential within it. That stillness has always been there, waiting. And remembering it, even briefly, is the beginning of a power nothing external can take away. That quiet stillness you sensed beneath the noise is not an ending. It is an invitation, and the big idea it carries is almost forbidden in its simplicity. Something eternal has been breathing through you long before you learned your own name. The ancient Gnostics spoke of this as a hidden spark, not as a belief to defend, but as a presence to remember, a subtle warmth beneath the cold layers of fear, identity, and striving. It was said to be untouched by loss or success, unscarred by rejection, unmoved by the endless verdicts of the world. Most lives pass without noticing it, not because it disappears, but because attention is trained elsewhere, toward what is missing, what is broken, what must be fixed. In those old stories, the archons did not erase the light. They distracted you from ever turning inward long enough to feel it. They whispered that you are only a body, only a role, only a collection of thoughts competing for approval. Yet beneath that story, something waits, patient and silent. Imagine someone who has lost everything that once defined them: work, direction, belonging. At first, there is panic, a sense of collapse, as if the ground itself has vanished. But in the empty space where identity falls apart, a strange calm sometimes appears. Not joy, not answers, just a steady presence that does not argue or demand. In that moment, it becomes clear that nothing essential was taken. What dissolved was only a costume. This is how remembrance begins, not through triumph, but through quiet honesty with what remains when everything else is stripped away. The spark does not flare when you chase it. It reveals itself when you stop running. It lives in pauses, in breath, in moments when you choose presence over performance. The old myths suggested that this inner light does not belong to the world of illusion, which is why no force rooted in fear can reach it. When it is remembered, something loosens. Beauty appears in ordinary moments. Strength rises from silence. Compassion begins to feel natural rather than earned. Pain no longer feels like a punishment, but like a messenger carrying information you were never taught how to read. Awakening, in this sense, was never about becoming someone new. It was about recognizing who has been here all along. You are not a person searching for spirit. You are awareness remembering itself through human experience. As this remembering deepens, even the darker moments of life begin to change shape. There are times when emotion rolls in like heavy fog, anger, grief, disappointment thick enough to block the horizon. Most people resist these states, pushing them away, judging themselves for feeling them, or numbing them into silence. The Gnostic imagination described the visible world as a veil, thin but convincing, where attention is trained on shadows rather than the light behind them. The archons, in those stories, thrived on reaction, on endless inner conflict, on fighting darkness with more darkness. Yet the deeper suggestion was always quieter. Shadows do not need to be defeated, only understood. Picture someone wounded by betrayal, replaying the moment again and again, feeding the fire with memory and blame. One day, exhaustion replaces resistance. Instead of escaping the pain, they sit with it, breathing, watching the sensations without naming them good or bad. Slowly, the heat softens. What looked like rage reveals itself as hurt, asking to be acknowledged. In that moment of seeing, the shadow loses its grip, not because it was destroyed, but because it was illuminated. The Gnostics hinted that true light does not attack darkness. It reveals what darkness has been hiding. Awareness dissolves illusion the way sunlight dissolves mist, not by force, but by presence. So when emotion rises again, do not rush to escape it. Look through it. Every shadow carries a trace of light behind it. And in the moment you see clearly, the veil thins, the illusion fades, and something timeless begins to breathe through you once more. There is a moment when nothing dramatic happens, yet everything quietly changes. It is the moment you stop trying to fix what you feel, stop arguing with the thoughts passing through you, and simply remain present. You pause, not to escape, but to see. Breath moves in and out, sensations rise and fall, and for the first time, you notice that something within you has not moved at all. The mind may still speak, emotion may still surge, but they no longer own the center. In that still witnessing, reaction loses its urgency. The illusion does not collapse, it thins. What once demanded obedience becomes something you can look at without fear. This is not effort, and it is not control. It is a quiet remembering of where awareness has always been, watching patiently while the noise passes through. As the veil thins and awareness begins to breathe through you again, another forbidden idea quietly surfaces. Pain was never meant to destroy you. In the old mythic imagination, pain was not a curse, but a signal, a low voice speaking from beneath the surface of suffering, asking to be listened to rather than silenced. The Gnostics hinted that every descent carries a hidden ascent. that within the heaviest moments of life lies a seed waiting for the right kind of attention. They spoke of an inner alchemy, not performed with tools or rituals, but with awareness, where what feels unbearable slowly transforms into understanding. The archons, in those stories, thrived on your fear of pain, because fear keeps you moving, resisting, distracting yourself before the message can be heard. When pain is avoided, it hardens. When it is met with presence, it changes. Awareness becomes a quiet fire, not burning you, but refining you, turning confusion into clarity and grief into depth. Picture someone who has lost a love that once anchored their world. At first, everything feels hollow, as if meaning itself has drained away. They try to fill the emptiness with noise, with motion, with anything that keeps silence at a distance. But one night, exhaustion wins. They sit alone and allow the ache to exist without argument. Tears come, not as a failure, but as a release. In that surrender, something unexpected appears. Beneath the sorrow is a current of love that loss could not touch. The pain no longer feels like an enemy, but like a wave washing something old away. That love becomes strength, not loud or dramatic, but steady. This is the alchemy the old stories pointed toward. When you stop running, pain stops chasing. The Gnostics suggested that every emotion carries its opposite within it, like a hidden twin. Anger shelters power, fear guards sensitivity, sadness protects love. When these emotions are welcomed rather than judged, they reveal what they were always carrying. Awareness does not demand that you reject darkness or cling to light. It invites you to hold both without being consumed by either. In that balance, something inside you matures. Even modern understanding quietly echoes this ancient intuition. When pain is met consciously, the body softens, the mind steadies, and the heart becomes more spacious. The archons lose their leverage because they cannot survive where attention is steady and honest. The fire that once scorched you becomes a lamp, and that light, once kindled, does not stay contained. It subtly touches everyone you meet. From here, another shift becomes possible. Courage reveals itself not as the absence of fear, but as clarity that remains when fear arises. The old teachings warned that fear itself was the favorite instrument of illusion, not because fear is wrong, but because reaction gives it weight. When fear dictates your movement, no chains are needed. But when fear is observed rather than obeyed, its authority dissolves. True courage, in this sense, is quiet. It does not shout or conquer. It stands still. It is the inner recognition that says, without drama, I see you, and you do not own me. Imagine someone whose life has been shaped by the fear of judgment. Every word is filtered. Every dream is hidden. One day, instead of reacting, they pause. They notice the tightness in the chest, the racing images of rejection, the old story of not being enough. They do not argue with it or push it away. They watch. As attention settles, the fear begins to thin. It becomes clear that fear only ruled when it was believed without question. This is courage as inner bravery, the act of staying present when instinct says to flee. Each moment of awareness in the face of fear is a small liberation. It returns attention to you. It weakens the illusions that feed anxiety and despair. In daily life, this courage appears in simple forms. speaking honestly when silence feels safer, setting boundaries without apology, sitting with anxiety instead of drowning it out, observing anger without letting it steer your actions. These are not grand gestures, but they reshape the inner world. With each choice, the light grows steadier. Courage does not erase the storm, but it allows you to see clearly within it. Awareness becomes both shelter and compass, and this quiet courage, more than anything else, is what the archons were said to fear. That quiet courage the archons fear most leads to an even deeper threshold, one that has always been closer than breath itself, the remembering of what you are beneath every story you've learned to believe. The ancient imagination hinted that something luminous lives inside every human, not as a reward to be earned, but as an origin never erased. This inner spark was said to come from a source untouched by time, loss, or control, and the greatest danger to illusion is not rebellion, but remembrance. The old teachers called this anamnesis, not as a doctrine, but as an intimate act of waking up to what has never been absent. Forgetting, in this sense, is not a failure, but a condition gently reinforced by distraction, urgency, and fear. The archons, in those stories, needed no chains because forgetfulness did the work for them. Every moment lost in resentment, comparison, or anxious projection fed the dream that you are small and separate. Yet every moment of awareness quietly unravels that dream. Imagine someone who once lived as if every emotion were an order, every thought a command. Life felt heavy, reactive, exhausting. Then, something subtle begins to change. Instead of immediately responding, they pause, they breathe. They notice the stillness beneath the surge of feeling. Anger passes through, but it no longer defines them. Sadness arises, but it does not collapse their sense of self. Even fear is seen as a sensation, not a verdict. In that noticing, a gentle clarity grows. Decisions become simpler. The world feels less hostile. Challenges begin to look like invitations to witness the light rather than proofs of inadequacy. Remembrance is not dramatic. It does not arrive once and stay forever. It unfolds in ordinary moments, in the choice to observe rather than react, to listen rather than defend. Each time awareness returns, energy is withdrawn from illusion. The archons were said to fade wherever attention becomes steady and honest. This remembering does not isolate you. It quietly connects you to everything else remembering itself. One spark recognizing its light subtly brightens the whole. No force is required. No belief must be defended. Awareness itself becomes a quiet revolution. As you move through your day, notice the moments when you disappear into noise. Everything you've moved through in this space settles now into something quieter and simpler, not as a conclusion to be understood, but as a feeling that knows where it belongs. What you noticed, what stirred, what felt heavy or strangely familiar was not random, and it didn't happen too early or too late. The questions, the tension, the moments of recognition all arrived because they were meant to arrive now, in the season you are in. Nothing here asked you to become someone else or to push further than you were ready to go. It only revealed what has been resting beneath the surface the entire time, steady and unchanged. If there were moments that felt unsettling, they were part of remembering, not a sign of being lost. If there were moments of calm or quiet warmth, they were not imagined. You were not chasing something outside yourself, and you were never standing on the wrong side of the door. The awareness that followed you through this journey didn't need effort to exist. It was already there, waiting patiently, untouched by noise, untouched by delay. Even the pauses, the doubts, the wandering attention all belong to the same movement, unfolding at its own pace. Nothing about your path is behind schedule, and nothing about you has been overlooked. What matters has not been taken from you, and what matters has not forgotten you. There is space now to rest inside that knowing, without needing to name it or hold on to it tightly. Just the sense of being held, of not having to search, of letting the weight soften a little. You don't need to carry everything forward from here. Some things can stay where they are, settled and complete. Others will surface again when the moment is right, gently, without force. And when you feel ready to continue, the next step will already be waiting, quietly aligned with you, in the videos ahead.